You're listening to Nothing Small About Business, where big thinking meets real world action. Ready to level up? Let's get into it.
Today's guest is an entrepreneur, author, and growth strategist with nearly 30 years of experience helping small business owners scale with clarity and focus. And he has worked alongside thousands of entrepreneurs, learning what truly drives sustainable success through real-world experience. He's the author of Up, A Journey of Intention, Focus, and Execution, and the founder of Ultradian Partners, where he helps entrepreneurs cut through the noise, focus on what matters, and execute consistently day after day. Welcome to the podcast, Peter Moulton.
Thank you so much, Sara. Thanks for having me.
So I just finished reading your book, and I'm really excited because I have so many questions for you because this is a book that I truly feel every business owner needs to read. So the interesting part that I found out in the very beginning of your book is that it talks about energy cycles. And it goes through, what that looks like for us throughout the day. So talk to me a little bit more about what energy cycles are.
Okay, so if you're familiar with the term circadian rhythms, which is what your sleep is. So circadian rhythms are the 90-minute cycles that you cycle between deep sleep and REM sleep. And in 1953 at the University of Chicago, a sleep researcher named Nathaniel Kleitman realized that the brain actually functions in 90-minute cycles during your waking hours as well. And what was fascinating to me is that your cognitive ability is you're firing on all cylinders in the morning for 99% of the people out there. Our best time is between like 7 and 9 in the morning. And
Interesting.
so I developed what I'm calling the Ultradian Method. What it does is it lays out 6 90-minute cycles for you to focus on different things. So when you're at your highest cognitive capacity during the morning hours, let's say before 12 o'clock, you're focusing on the things that really move whatever it is you're trying to move in your life. You could be an artist, you could be a business person, you could be whatever you want to be. You could be a parent, right? And I think that so many people don't pay attention to the absolute exhaustion that is caused by parenting and how you can potentially work within your rhythms to make a difference in your own life. But what I introduce in the Ultradian Method is having a very intense focus for 60 to 75 minutes. And then what separates what I'm trying to do from others is that I create a mandatory break of 15 minutes for cognitive rest. And what we realize, athletes have known about this for years and have capitalized on it. So if you look at Serena Williams' training schedule, it's broken into 90-minute sprints. And she trains for 60 minutes or 75 minutes, and then she takes a 15 to 30-minute break. And if you think about somebody playing tennis, if you try to play tennis for 10 hours a day, you'd be on your knees by hour 2. And I think that that's the way people behave in today's society and it's especially promoted by the grind culture. And you and I can get into that in just a minute. But yeah, those are the cycles that I talk about in the book.
And it's interesting, you talk about needing that necessary break. And before reading your book, for me, sometimes that break would be scrolling Instagram. But after reading your book, I'm like, oh my God, that is probably the worst thing I can do during the break because now I'm worrying about what Betty is making for dinner tonight. It has not an actual mental break. It's probably way worse. And you talk a lot about the cognitive decline that happens with all of these different distractions. So it's interesting. So like in the morning, you're saying have a very structured, and that means like put your phone away, eliminate all distractions and focus on the most important task of the day, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to focus on what you obviously need to take care of, whatever you need to take care of, whether that's driving to work and preparing for a successful day, or being a parent and driving the kids to school, and then preparing the time that you have left until you have to be in parent mode again. But you brought up something very important, which is what I call the distraction economy. And so in June of 2007, Jobs introduced the iPhone. And I don't think anybody had any idea that what we had done is we had put a distraction machine into our own pocket that provided notifications and buzzes and all of these things. And now in 2026, we're operating at a level of being interrupted every 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes on average, your phone is interrupting you. And people today tend to, on average, check their phone 154 times per day. So
That is
154 times.
wild.
Well, and if you think about it, 154 times a day being interrupted every 6 minutes, that's 15.4 hours that you're awake and being interrupted every 6 minutes. And so I've watched from my perspective in coaching people and leading people towards a more successful business, and frankly, my own children, that you have to make an effort to remove yourself from the distraction economy if you want to be able to have three things. You need to be able to bring intention to your day. You have to learn how to focus like crazy, and you have to learn how to execute ruthlessly. And we'll talk about multitasking in a minute, but those are the three ingredients that I see. If you're able to ingrain those three things into your day, you will be profoundly successful. You'll have an advantage over 95, 97% of the people out there.
Wow. And you talk about the distraction economy, and I felt so seen in that moment of, okay, it's not just me being incredibly weak. There's these massive companies doing these research to know exactly how to distract us. So, I work from home, and I think a lot of people work from home now. And I was thinking through what some of my mornings look like after the kids go to school, and I'll sit down, I'll open my computer. 5 seconds later, I go to the kitchen to make coffee, which then I realize I need to run the dishwasher. And then I'm back at my computer. And then, go get my coffee because now it's ready. Okay, let's open Instagram really quick. I'm like reading your book. I felt so seen, but it was also
Uh,
nice knowing that there are these billion-dollar industries working to get our attention with notifications and apps and alerts and all of these things. So, what are some tools that people can use to start eliminating some of those distractions?
sure, sure. So it's very, very simple. And we live in a world that complicates everything. And so we're actually in the process of developing software for this very purpose. But, you know, just to go back for a second, the distraction economy consists of an economy within itself. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok is crazy. And so the distraction economy is those companies that I just mentioned, but what they're doing is they pay behavioral scientists and addiction specialists to fundamentally capture your attention in order to sell ads. And they never want you to leave the platform that you're on. And so it's almost criminal. It's almost like cigarettes. And I talk about that in the book as well, where
Mhm.
the distraction economy companies like Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, et cetera, are using the same playbook that tobacco companies did in the 60s and 70s, which is to deny the bad effects and to blame the user for their own problem. And,
Right,
you
saying like, you
know,
don't have to be. We're not forcing you to use this. We're not forcing you to stay
precisely.
on there.
But it is incredible the draw that it has on someone's mind, from eye movement all the way to like when you're walking somewhere, the amount of distraction that happens. So I'll answer your question specifically. What are some ways to eliminate distraction? I am a huge fan of the do not disturb function on my phone. And I actually go for 5, 6, 7 hours a day during the day with my phone in do not disturb. And
Wow.
I now have developed a single video post for every day called A Simple Truth.
Mhm.
And I'm posting it on all the mediums, but it can't be longer than 30 to 35 seconds because no one pays any attention. Most of them can't pay attention beyond 3 seconds.
Right.
And that's why it's interesting. I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said the first 3 seconds of every video are the most important because if you haven't grabbed them by then, it's over. What I've learned, and I've built a following to some degree with this, and even just the last week since I decided to start doing it, is that if I am not forceful and blunt in the first 3 seconds, that my viewership drops off almost to 100%. They drop off by 10 seconds.
10 seconds. We can't even keep our attention for 10 seconds on something that could help change our lives.
Right. Well, and in order to eliminate distraction, I propose working, and I talk about this in the book, I propose working in sprints. So your first sprint of the day, you are most cognitively capable. And so for me, I start my day at about 4:30 every morning. I'm in the drive-through at Starbucks, 5 o'clock sharp. I get my Starbucks, which I also talk about in the book that I've spent $90,000 on. So I spend from 4:30 until about 7 getting myself centered for the day. And what that looks like for me is beginning the process of disconnection. And I've finally, after about 5 years, I've created the ability for myself to work in 6 90-minute sprints a day, which I talk about in the book. I talk about in the book the absolute necessity of building yourself into one sprint, then two sprints, then three sprints. And very seldom, like 10% of the people that I coach are able to do 4 sprints. I have
Okay.
a handful of people that are able to do 5, and I think I have one that's able to do 6 besides myself. And so
You mean able to do that because the cognitive energy runs out? Or why is that? Why do most people stop at 4?
most people just can't do it beyond 4. They can't be productive for that long, and they can't resist the distraction economy. And then
Okay.
let's talk about the bullshit grind culture too, right? Let's be really honest about it, that the grind culture tells you that working harder is the answer, working longer hours is the answer. And it is so catastrophic when taken together with the distraction economy, which virtually has you cognitively paralyzed every minute of the day. And then the grind culture tells you, well, you're just not working hard enough, right?
Mhm.
You can't, and then it's sort of like doing yoga, it's sort of like doing meditation. It's those types of things where you sit down with intention, you display a specific behavior or action for a period of time, and then you stop doing it, and then you take a break, and then you start doing it again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just kind of makes me think of something that my husband used to say. He was like, I used to think that if you weren't fully stressed out, then you were not successful and you weren't doing something right. And
Yeah.
now that, we've evolved, that it's realizing if you're that stressed out, you're doing something absolutely wrong.
Well, no, but I think that society rewards stress, right? And I think that it's a unfortunate but legitimate perspective that if you're not breaking yourself, you are never going to achieve what it is that you want. And my suggestion is let's take a longer path, right? And let's focus for 90 minutes, then 180 minutes, and then blah blah blah. And we keep moving forward. And ultimately in 6.5 hours during 6 90-minute cycles, you're absolutely crushing it without even realizing it. But it is a muscle you have to build.
So talk to me through what different activities people are doing during that first, second, and third sprint.
Well, so the first and second sprints, in my estimation, are about two things. It's about growing revenue, A, and building relationships or strengthening relationships. Those are the two things that universally are true in business. If you need to focus on revenue, what drives revenue? And I think when you ask a lot of people that, they have no idea what you're talking about, right? And so if you go into a major company and you say to them, what drives revenue? They'll say sales. And I'll say, okay, tell me more about that. And then they'll say, well, my people get in and I get probably 3 hours worth of work out of an 8 hour day. And it actually,
Mhm.
Microsoft in 2017 analyzed 85 million hours worth of work and came to find out that the average person works 2 hours and 53 minutes out of an 8 hour day. And so from,
Wow.
right?
That is,
And so
yeah.
And it's estimated that there are 38.4 million small businesses in the United States. And it is estimated that between distraction and disconnection, that those 38.4 million small businesses lose $8 trillion a year from distraction and the bullshit grind culture. And I think
Right.
especially as small business owners, like realtors are the ultimate testing ground, right? Because it's the lowest barrier to entry. And what is commonly known is that in 36 months, 85% of the people that get into real estate get out. Think about that for a second. And so if you're focusing on the 15 that are going to make it, you have to be really, really in tune with what's going to create success for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it interesting when you talk about in your book that a lot of people also are okay staying at their current income, but they want to work less. And there's a way to do that too. And what I really
Mhm.
appreciate about what the book talks about is that it's not like you have to become $1 billion company. It's more about identifying what it is that you want your life to look like and making the decisions to structure it around there. And, that is a conversation my husband and I have a lot often is like, how much is enough? And what do we want our lifestyle to look like without overextending ourselves or working 6 days a week or missing our kids' sports and things like that? And we really sat down to figure out what we want that to look like. And I appreciate that your book talks about that because I don't find that a lot of the business books, talk about that being a priority for people.
I think that there's a growing movement of I have enough. And I think it's interesting when I do business planning with people, we do like long-term vision. So how old are you, Sarah?
Tomorrow's my birthday and I turn 41.
41. That's amazing. My conversation would be, in what period of time do you no longer wish to have to? And and people will say to me, I'm gonna have to work my whole life. And I'll say, that's a choice. That's a choice you're making.
Hmm.
And then you have people that say, I want to work my whole life. That's great. That's a choice. You're conscious of that. And then I have people that say to me, I'm 55, I have no savings, and I want to retire by the time I'm 62. Okay. You've made choices that are going to make that impossible. And so then we work from that. Like, my intention is to no longer be working, and we decide what a number is. And then we decide from there what the annual number needs to be in terms of income. And then we set ruthless parameters about savings, taxes, investment, personal salary, etc. And then we break that into a 90-day business plan. And then we break the 90-day business plan into a 30-day business plan. And then we break it into a 24-hour business plan. And I think that if you're not planning in 24-hour increments, you're in big trouble.
Okay, so that was
Well,
a
it's
big key in your book was working in 12-week planning modes. And this is perfect timing because it's the start of the year and people are setting their goals for 2026, what they want their business to look like. And one thing you talk about, which was eye-opening, is that if you set yourself up with a yearly goal, you're going to set yourself up for failure. And it's breaking it down, starting with those 12 weeks. So talk to me through what that process looks like.
Well, so you start with, when do you want to retire? And you work all the way into your first sprint, right? And how that's going to affect. And I have no unreasonable expectations that, I've had clients that are like, I'm doing all 6 sprints tomorrow. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a dumpster fire. And
All right.
and
Call me
so I
Monday when you're
don't,
burnt
I,
out.
yeah, when you hate yourself and me and you want to quit. And um, but it is fascinating how attracted people are to reclaiming sort of the quiet. And I think that there's a massive hunger for that. There's a massive hunger for reducing the noise. And there's so much noise. It is so painful to watch people check their phones 154 times a day. It is so painful for people to watch people be slaves to notifications. And it's fascinating to me, if you look at any productivity app, they are littered with distraction.
Mhm.
All that does is it makes it impossible for you to execute and to focus. And so I frequently begin with 60 minutes, one time per day, Monday through Friday. And I do it almost for a month before we try to build onto a second sprint because you have to develop the muscle.
Mhm. And you talk a lot about that timepiece kicking in, and it's not doing something a couple times and expecting grandiose results. It's doing
Mhm.
it every single day. And after, what is
Eh,
it? I think 18 months, you said the time factor kicks in.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at athletes, they train 90% of their time is spent on training and 10% of their time is actually performing. And I forget who it was, but I watched a fascinating interview about a guy who talked about the biggest obstacle he had to overcome towards being an NBA champion, which he um, was boredom. Boredom was his number one obstacle. And he said, you stand there and you shoot 53 free throws, and you're like, why am I shooting 53 free throws? And then you look at a guy like Steph Curry, who spends 4 to 5 hours a day just shooting the ball, shooting the ball, shooting the ball. And so that it's reflexive, it's intuitive what he's about to do. And then when he gets on the court and he has to perform, that 90% of the time is what's made him hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow, that's so true. And it's just doing those same repetitive tasks over and over. And that is refreshing because I feel like sometimes for creatives, you feel like you have to constantly reinvent the wheel, and you really don't. It's just showing up and doing the same thing over and over and over again and refining your craft that really makes the difference.
And what's fascinating is the resistance that I get from people when I ask them for 60 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. And so then my question becomes to them when they're very resistant, I say, what are you going to do for the rest of the 8 hours? They're like, I don't know. Check social media, whatever. I don't even know. And my point to them is if you give me 60 minutes a day, I can predict your income to within $10,000. If you give me 180 minutes a day, I can predict your growth. And I can predict a growth rate of between 20 and 40%. And what people don't want to realize is that there is a huge responsibility for them to do repetitious tasks. And every person I've ever known that's super successful, they did everything every day incrementally towards a larger goal. And people can't do that. And
Hmm.
one of the things I talk about in my coaching sessions is we grossly overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, and we grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in 5.
Hmm.
And then you have the boredom factor, right? You have all these factors, distraction, the grind culture. You have the myth that success is an explosion, and it's not. It's a slow burn.
Well, it sounds like following a method and actually putting intention behind the things that you're doing, you can predict results to a point. You can't, know what outside circumstances are going to hit you, but at least you know that you're relying on yourself and your systems and getting a strong
Yeah,
foundation there.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's you can have explosive success, but can you endure that success over time in an explosive manner? And if you talk to anybody that's like crazy successful, they say, no, it's a period of 10 years that it took me to get where I want to be.
So true. Absolutely. The one thing that you're building, which I'm so interested to find out more about, is, am I saying it right? Say it for me, Ultradian method.
So, well, the Ultradian method I lay out in the book. And then what we're building is what we're calling Ultradia.io. And we actually have a Kickstarter that launches this coming Tuesday at 7:30 a.m., where I'm asking people to help me fund like a much higher level of production on the book and also the software. And I've put $75,000 in the last 12 months into the business, and I'm probably going to put another 85 to 100 in the next 12 months. But what we want is to develop partnerships. We want to attract people that are interested in the same mindset. And we felt that Kickstarter would be a good way to go about that. Uh, But Ultradian.io is we're calling it a collaborative accountability platform. And one of the things there's two things that are especially true in today's society, and largely due to the distraction economy and the grind culture. People are absolutely starved for community. And the second thing that they're starved for is a sense of personal significance. And what I believe is that if I can put you together with 8 to 12 people and all you do is execute during whatever period of time that you commit to, and you're transparent about that time and what you've accomplished, that's the collaborative nature. There's not going to be any judgment, right? It's just you being
Mm-hmm.
transparent with other people. People are 65 times more likely to achieve whatever it is that they wish to achieve if they have some sort of collaborative accountability. 65 times.
65 times.
It's ridiculous. It's exponential. It's crazy. And
Right.
so, in my experience for the last 28 years and leading people in real estate's an incredibly lonely business. You can build friendships, you can build community, but in your success, you're largely totally alone. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why we're building this. The software is you're going to commit to a sprint, and we allow times between 45 minutes and 90 minutes total. So 45, 60, 75, 90. And then there's a timer that everyone else can see that's online that says, I'm 43 minutes into my sprint and I have another 22 minutes left, whatever that looks like.
Okay.
And then you literally are removed from the sprint for 15 to 30 minutes, whichever one you choose, where you're going to cognitively disconnect. And the purpose of it is to create a bridge for community, collaborative accountability, but also to help 12 other people help you feel significant about what you're trying to accomplish. And the interesting thing that we've done is we've eliminated all notifications, and you receive one email per day at 5 o'clock that tells you how you did, and it tells you how the other 12 members of the circle, we're calling them Ultradian circles, did during that day. So we're super excited about it. It's going to
Well,
be
that's awesome. I imagine entrepreneurs and small business owners, we can be kind of competitive. So seeing how you're ranking with everybody else at 5 p.m. when you should be checking emails, when not at 9 a.m., you should not be checking emails per the book.
right.
Say you don't want to be last. You want to say, wow, that's like very eye-opening for people to see compared to others, how they did. I think that could be a really good motivator for people.
The other thing that's really important is I want people to realize that the other people are humans and they fail, right? Like if I don't show up all day and the next day I say, hey, sorry guys, I just totally lost myself yesterday. There's no shame in that, right? But that's the transparency that we're looking for and the
Hmm.
support that we're looking for. And the way that we're going to coach people to exist in these circles is by saying to them, hey, I hear you and I'm here for you and I support you.
That could be very
Those are,
motivating for people.
yeah, absolutely.
And if you're going to tell me I'm going to be 65 times more likely to succeed, like, yeah, sure, I'll take that deal. No, but my question is, you talk a
100%.
lot about real estate agents. Is this going to
Uh-huh.
be for people in all sorts of industries, though? Correct?
Yes, this is for anybody that wants to do anything.
Okay.
And
And then,
so
so one big
go ahead.
question that I have, are you in different circles depending on where you're at in your career?
It's interesting. What we decided is to not create specific circles for specific levels, but just to let them naturally evolve. And that may be the wrong decision.
And
Okay.
one statement that I think about often is what got you here won't get you there. And having that accountability partner and having the mentor and investing in actual coaching of people that have done it can be so important because you're not reinventing the wheel here and you don't have to grind and work
Mhm.
as hard trying to figure it out on your own. So, before we wrap up, can you talk to me a little bit about that whole concept of investing in actual coaches and mentorship?
Sure. I think there's various different types of coaching. And I think that what most people coach on is strategy. And I find that to be useless bullshit. And the
I
reason that
love
I
your
say that,
honesty.
the reason that I say that is my focus is on execution and planning. And I believe that if you execute on a daily basis, even if it's an hour a day over a period of 5 years, that's incredible focus and execution. That's an incredible amount of hours, right? That's 250 hours a year if you're working for 60 minutes a day on growth. And people don't pay attention to the powerful impact of 60 minutes a day, which is 99% of people don't bring that type of intention to their day. The reason that I think coaching and accountability is so important is it forces you to be two things, authentic and transparent. And I approach all of my coaching, education, consulting roles with a huge amount of curiosity. And I'm also able to authentically call out bullshit and say to people at all levels of experience, at all levels of success, hey, that's bullshit. And I think everybody needs somebody in their life that's willing to do that.
I could get that reading your book. It felt like you were speaking directly to me in a very honest way. And there's things that I've myself done that you're like, you think you're busy, you need to be doing this. That is completely false. Like, you don't do any of that and your business will still grow. And it's so funny because it's so true. We boggle ourselves down with being so busy and we have to do this and this and this to succeed. Really, if you just stick to the fundamentals and you show up every day doing that at 100% instead of 40% cognitive capacity. So,
Right.
I mean, your book was very eye-opening for me and something that I read it once and now I'm going to go back in with a highlighter and go through the parts that I really need to hone in on because I can't tell you how many times the distraction, now that I have a little awareness around it, I mean, it's constant. My anthropology app is like, hey, 50% off. And then my, Instagram notification. And then all of a sudden, my kid's asking me a question. I've probably been operating at like 25%. So watch out. We're getting that up to like 80% next week.
Well, and it's interesting that people don't realize that ever for Judy Burke, I think that's her last name at the University of California, Davis, identified that it takes 23 minutes for you to refocus on whatever you're focusing on if you're interrupted. And so think about it. If you're interrupted every 6 minutes that you're awake, you are never operating at a high cognitive capacity ever.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
But it's also makes
Yeah.
you're like, okay, that makes sense. So now we can do something about that.
Now we can change it. Now we can change
It's
it.
not our fault. These businesses are working against us to get our attention.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a wonderful conversation. I would love to keep going, but we have to wrap it up. And what I
Okay.
love to leave each episode is, what is the one thing that business owners can do today that can greatly improve their life or their business?
I would take them through the process of surrendering to who they are today rather than who they wish they were. If you look at people that are profoundly successful, they understand themselves and they understand what they're good at and what they're not. And they've surrendered to the distraction economy. They've often surrendered to the grind culture. And what I see every day, especially the younger the people are, is this devastating cognitive disconnect. And so surrender to who you are. Surrender to the fact that you're only operating at 30 to 40% of your cognitive capacity. Because if you do that, we can move forward. If you refuse to acknowledge it and you refuse to stop engaging in behaviors that are bad for you, there's nothing I can do. And just
You're
like my
fighting
own
yourself
recovery.
there.
Yeah, just like my recovery from drugs and alcohol. It's like I got to get up every day and be like, shh, you know what? I'm still a drunk and I'm still a junkie, even after 35 years. So
That's incredible that it's been 35 years. I really, truly commend you for that.
thanks.
It's changed your life for sure. I've no doubt about that.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And I feel like I'm going to have to do some weekly check-ins with you. So I'm going to be on the lookout
Just
for your Kickstarter.
you have my cell phone number.
I do have
If
your
you
cell phone.
if you text me and you just say I need help, I will call you back immediately. So there you go.
Good to know. All right. Check out the book. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And I have no doubt it's going to be a huge success.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Nothing Small About Business. Make sure you follow this show so you don't miss the value in upcoming episodes. Share this with someone who's growing, and connect on socials for more.